Hello everybody, welcome back. We are live once again. Doing another Autoplay Rabbit Holes. The last one seemed to do pretty well. And this is kind of like not one that I wrote down as an idea, but I just started watching some of these like 2 hours ago, so I thought this would be an interesting one to try. So let's go ahead and pull up an incognito window. Ooh. Pull it over here. Alright. I can't really drag my face out of the way right now for you to see the search bar, but I'm gonna go to YouTube. Alright. YouTube, no one's signed in. This is just what comes up for people. So, I'm gonna go and type in Tales from the Trip, right? So, I don't actually know which one to start with. You see, we don't want to do a playlist because that'll just play through the playlist. We want to see where it takes us from one video to the next as a recommendation from nothing. So, these just seem interesting to me. Let's see this one. Duncan Trussell took so much ketamine that time stopped. Alright, let's start with this one. Why not? Whoa. Okay. Calm down a little bit. Alright. I gotta turn autoplay on. Okay, it is. I'm gonna go full screen here.
Time to keep the universe alive! Hey, my name's Duncan Trussell, and this is the time I snorted a massive satanic rail of ketamine at Burning Man and went into a K-hole in front of my agent. I was pretty excited to hear that one of my agents was gonna be at Burning Man, so I invited him to our camp. I was gonna give him a tour at Burning Man. He'd never been before. I was gonna be the first person to walk with him through the beautiful, incredible, mystical city that is Black Rock City. But because I was already in the spirit of Burning Man, without really considering what I was doing, I did a massive rail of ketamine in a tent. If you're gonna do ketamine, do it at one of the clinics. Don't do rails of ketamine. You don't know what's happening these days with white powders. It could have fentanyl in it. I can remember sitting next to the burner who had offered me this ketamine and doing what I thought was a normal amount of ketamine, and looked over, and this burner has this weird look on his face. And he says to me,
"See you later, man."
Not a good thing to hear, but I, at the time, wasn't quite familiar with ketamine dosages. And so I did an amount of ketamine that these days I know would be that you should only do it if you were dying and you didn't want to feel yourself die. It was that size of a dose. Now, ketamine takes a second to kick in. So I had just enough time to walk out of the tent and to sit down with my wonderful agent and one of his friends, and we started talking. And it was really a great conversation. You could look out and see the sun had just begun to set. You could hear music, the great carnival energy of Burning Man. I'm like, "Joe, this is gonna be so great. Let's go walk out into it, man. I want to show you I want you to see the sights." And so he's like, "Yeah, let's go." And I try to stand up, and it's like my legs had been turned to stone. Chronicles of Narnia level statue legs. They were paralyzed. I couldn't move my legs, which I thought for a second, this is pretty funny. My legs aren't working. But right as that thought started going through my mind, time stopped. every moment was feeling right around like 6 hours. So I was essentially in what's it called? The sunken place. I could think pretty clearly, and I had a lot of time to think because every moment was taking 6 hours. And I'm trying to figure out a way to explain to my agent, like, well, you see, Joe, it looks like I may have taken a little too much ketamine, and I don't think I can walk with you maybe ever again, because it could be that I'm dying. I don't know. I've never felt time freeze before, but here in front of you and your friend who I just met, who I think is also from the agency you work for, your client very well might keel over and just die in the sand here. But instead, what was coming out of my mouth was, he looked at me and he's like, okay, Duncan, we're gonna go now, and maybe we'll see you later. And I'm like, he leaves. I'm sitting there witnessing the flower of life.
Goodness.
Suddenly it's like I'm seeing the flower of life. I'm no longer mortified by the fact that, I don't know, who knows, maybe I'm gonna get fired now. I don't know what the rules are with agents and clients on ketamine. Does my agency have something in their book about, well, you know, if you're at Burning Man and your client goes into a K-hole, it's over. But I do know that time was framing. Time had frozen into one single frame. I fell over into the sand where one of my friends was also in the sand, and he looked at me and said, the floor is a wonderful place, man. So, see, what had happened is my Burning Man camp had all been doing ketamine. That's what it sounded like across the camp. You know, just like people bellowing into the night, trying to talk. All of us were laying on the floors of the gravitational field of the Earth that increased like 10 times or something like that. No one's sure what's happening. I think I embarrassingly yelled out at one point, I am trying to keep the universe alive! My friend who I was laying on the ground next to at one point was like, what happened to your agent, man? Later, I tried to get in touch with my agent, not sure what to say at Burning Man. There's no cell phone reception, but 3 weeks later, we went and got drinks. I was like, maybe this is it. This is where he's gonna like drop the hatchet on me. And I'm like, Joe, I just wanna apologize for going into a K-hole in front of you at Burning Man. And he got this big smile on his face, and he's like, Duncan, I represent comedians. You think I haven't seen that before? Which was like, what? You're the coolest guy ever. You mean that's something that happens? You've seen multiple clients go into the K-hole at Burning Man? Anyway, we still work together, and that's my story.
Tales from the...
Alright. What do you think it'll play next? Let's find out. Making some big mistakes smoking DMT for the first time.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And I shoot through this tunnel, and I'm going through this tunnel, and I get into this massive hall, right?
Yeah, I didn't see this one either.
Yo, what's up? My name is Carnage, and this is the first time I ever did DMT. Me and my homie Cena went to Hawaii. Basically just like go and just like get our minds right. We had ate mushrooms the night before, but like I had brought DMT with me. I've been holding on to this DMT for weeks, for months I think, and I was kind of just like, okay, when's the right time I'm gonna do it? I've been listening to like McKenna, like him talking about all these different settings and times and shit. And then the next day, we need to figure out how we're gonna make the pipe. And like we needed to get like this this little bottle and put like a mesh in it, and we were just like, this is gonna be too hard. Why don't we just like go to a smoke shop? So we go to this smoke shop, we're just like looking around, and then we're just like, fuck, like we really should, I really just want to ask this guy, but I don't know if he's like, it's just a stoner, or if he's like, you know, if he's like gonna call the cops on us, I don't know what, right? So we're just like, all right, like we're looking for like a pipe, you know, to vaporize. Like he's like,
What are you smoking?
my homie's like, DMT. And I'm like, oh my, I'm like, and then so the guy's like, oh, okay, you went, you're about to smoke some Deems, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, the first time I ever did it was with the moon rock pipe, right? And come to find out later on, the moon rock pipe is like the harshest way to smoke DMT out of. But we're like, all right, cool. So we get this pipe, we get back in the car, we go back to the house, this sick ass crib on the water, like Scarface house, and like we're seeing this beautiful view. We're like, all right, we're gonna do it. So then I hit it, and then like it tastes like really rubbery and really bad. So I'm like, but nothing's happening. I'm like, fuck. So then my other homie goes and he does it, and nothing happens to him. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So then my boy, I'm like, you gotta do it again, but let's just put more in it. So my boy hits it, and he's coughing and having like a horrible cough attack. And I'm like, oh my God, like, maybe is it because we did the mushrooms last night? Like, it's not gonna work. And I'm like tripping. I'm like, I'm just gonna put some more on it. So then I put some more on there, not knowing that from all these hits, there had been a lot of residue from the DMT. So it was just like all accumulating into this big, like so much DMT in this rock that we kept heating up. And I hit it, and I'm like, okay, and I start feeling low-key like lightheaded, and I'm just like, okay, well, okay, definitely something happening. I'm like, do the second hit. So then I hit the hit. As soon as I hit that second hit, there's a bird that was flying across, and the bird is going across, and it just freezes in the air. And I'm like, oh my, and I literally feel like I'm morphing. And you know in Matrix, when they put that thing in the back of his head, and he goes, oh, like that is crazy. Like all these patterns, all these figures, like all these crazy, like, geometrical like patterns in the sky, and everything freezes, and literally I see everything digitalized. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And I shoot through this tunnel, and I'm going through this tunnel, and I get into this massive hall, right? With all these patterns, red and blue patterns, like this massive hall. At that very time, I'm thinking about Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan is like, I'm reminded of when he said that he saw like these like entities, and I'm like, oh my God, these are the entities, but I can't see them, but I know they're there. At the same time, I'm like touching myself, pause. I'm still here, but I can't open my eyes. And then I look, I finally force myself to open my eyes, so I'm freaking out. And I look over to my left, and my homie, I saw his face on his chest. He had a bunch of faces on him. And I was like, oh, let me close my eyes again. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, wake up, please wake up, wake up. And as soon as I wake up, everything in front of me is like mega. Like the pool was like a lake. The palm trees along like where the turf grass was like 500 meters high, and then literally all the clouds were like Nintendo Mario, and I'm like saying, oh my God, for literally 3 minutes while it's slowly coming down, and I walk out, and then literally everything just goes back to normal. And that was the first time I ever did DMT. Crazy. After that trip, I kind of like completely understand what like how hippies think now, and they're so like at ease with life, and it makes me like, you can't be stressing about what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. You kind of just got to get on the bus and let the bus take you. Even if it's a bad ending or a good ending, you have to literally live your life to the complete fullest.
Tales from the
Ooh, shrooms compilation. Alright, let's see it.
I look to the side of him, and Al Roker appears, and he's like giving the weather. Hi, my name is Sydney Washington, and this is the story of the first and the last time I did shrooms. It was like a hot summer day. I'm in this room with my roommate at the time. TV is super boring, right? It was just like regular reality TV. And we're like, man, we gotta find something to do. He's like, hey, I have mushrooms. And I've never done mushrooms before. And I'm like, I don't know, should I really be interested in this? But I've done cat tranquilizer before, so it's fine. He gives me the mushrooms, and he's like, don't take a lot, just take a little since this is your first time. But I'm a G, like I'm a grown woman. I'm like, no, don't give me the kids menu. Give me the adult size mushrooms that I'm supposed to be taking. He's like, okay. So the mushrooms are inside of me, and I'm talking to my roommate, and my roommate is always late with the rent. And for some reason, I was like, let's talk about this right now. Let's get it out in the open. He's like, listen, I'm always late with the rent because I'm low-key unemployed. So most of the times I'm giving you whatever I can. And like something in my heart was like, damn, he's really doing bad. Like, why am I giving him such a hard time? And then all of a sudden, I look to the side of him and the walls look like they're melting. And Al Roker appears. And he's like giving the weather. And I was like, is Al Roker the weatherman? I thought he talked about news and current events. But so I'm tripping at Al, and then all of a sudden I give him a high five because I'm like, he's Al Roker. He's like legendary. I have to respect because he's been a friend of the family for years. That's not true, but I just felt like that when I was on mushrooms. So this huge fan that's got lint all over it is spinning, and the walls are melting, and I look into the fan, and the fan turns into some kind of monster, some like big mouth monster with like weird dog ears and no eyes. And I'm freaking out because I was like, the fan needs eyes, you know? And I'm telling my roommate that, I'm like, the fan doesn't have eyes, and I'm really upset. It's really scaring me. And so then he takes his hand and touches the fan and puts 2 eyes on the fan. So I'm going nuts because I was like, wait, where did he get those eyes from? You can't pay the rent, but you have money for eyes? So I look at the fan, and something in the fan reminds me of my ex, you know, because my ex is just spewing out dust and has dog ears, so I'm getting into it. My roommate is looking at me like, oh,
ex is a dog.
She's tripping. Because he's done mushrooms before, so he's laughing. He's not making a big deal of it. But I'm like in another world. And then I look at the TV. The TV is still on. The TV looks like it has a big hole in it. And I'm like, I just bought that TV. Where did this hole come from? So then my roommate is all into this trip. So he's like, oh, so let's call the place. Let's call Best Buy. Let's go. So I'm freaked out. I'm tripping on mushrooms. I call Best Buy up.
Dude.
I'm like, Best Buy,
no, dude.
I have a hole in my TV. I just bought it. I don't have the receipt, but I'm bringing it now. So I unplug the TV. I'm like, we're going to Best Buy. And then he's like, all right, you're tripping? No, like, you're for real tripping, and we're not going anywhere. You have to stay in the room. So he closes the door and locks the door. And I'm like, oh my God, my roommate is keeping me hostage, and it's hot. Like, I'm sweat. Like, I have makeup on.
Boy.
My eyebrows are melting off of my face. My hair is falling out. My face is falling off. My ex-boyfriend is telling me that my feet smell. It's just a lot going on with these mushrooms. And I was like, cat tranquilizer has never done this to me. Like, I'm just sticking to K. That's it. So I go in my closet. I'm in my closet that's a mess. You know, I didn't put nothing on a hanger. Like, the hangers, my clothes are on the hangers, but halfway on. So then I'm looking at the hanger, and the hanger turns into a liger. I don't know if is that a real thing? But at the time I was like, that's a liger. That's a tiger and a lying liar. Is that a liger? A lying tiger, that's what it is. So my clothes are halfway on the hanger, and it starts caressing me. And I was like, oh, I feel safe here. This is where I need to be. So I just stay in the closet, and I lock myself in the closet for a good hour and a half. And I come out of the closet, and he's like, are you good? I was like, I don't know. But somehow he starts talking to me about how he doesn't have money. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I understand. You don't have to pay me rent for a whole month. So somehow I get out of mushrooms, and I'm in the hole, like $800, because I have to keep my word. He doesn't have to pay rent. I'm freaked out. I've been in the closet for an hour and a half, and I'm still hot. So that was the first and last time I've ever done mushrooms.
Tales from the
No! I'm getting fucking attacked by a swarm of spirits! Hi, my name's Duncan Trussell. You should be careful when you take penis envy mushrooms, especially if we have the same mushroom dealer.
How long is this one?
This
Oh, it's only
is
15 minutes ago.
2011. I was with someone I'd been seeing for a short time, and she'd never taken mushrooms. So I'm like, let's drive up to the desert. We'll take mushrooms. Don't worry, I'll be your guide. You know, I'm sure the ride up there, I was giving her some awful psychedelic Jesus-style ear beating about what mushrooms are and what she could expect and the healing that would come her way. And these mushrooms I had obtained from a drug dealer. He told me the name of the mushrooms was penis envy. And I remember hating that you don't want to tell the day, like, yeah, these are penis envy mushrooms. Like, these mushrooms are named after, like, a Freudian hangout where women wish they had dicks. This drug dealer had warned me, don't fuck around with these. These were a spore print from Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna's private collection. Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna are essentially gods in the psychedelic community. And I just didn't believe him. We got to this spa. It was this cool collision of like new age healers. And one of them had told me the place was an energy vortex, which means I guess you only need to take like half the dose of the drug that you're gonna take there. We get there and I take the mushrooms. My date takes the mushrooms. And within 10 minutes, something starts happening that has never happened to me before on mushrooms. I'm looking down at my hands on the bed, and my fingers are spaghettifying. Like, you've probably heard of what happens if you go into a black hole. This was happening to my fingers. My date is like,
What the heck?
when am I gonna start feeling it? And I'm like, I don't know. We walk out of the hotel room, and I hear a voice in my head. And the voice in my head says,
We are the eternal guardians of the universe, and we are going to do deep work on you today.
can we do deep work on me another day? Because I was hoping for just more of like a kind of, fun laugh trip, not deep work, voices in your head. I told my date, I'm like, I'm just gonna go lay down for a second. And I'm laying on this lawn chair. The sun is setting. What I'm about to say sounds like something someone who's never taken a psychedelic would say. It's like the kind of thing when the cop came to your school. It's like,
If you take acid, you're gonna see dragons, Bigfoot that's gonna like be holding your mom's head in one hand and her tits in the other, and it's gonna shake them at you. And that's what drugs do.
no, this happened. I'm looking at this now alien landscape, hyperdimensional colors, everything is melting, and standing on a tree branch is a gnome. It's like my subconscious was just being fucking lazy, and it's like, okay, let's just show him a fucking yard gnome. Or, because I was on mushrooms and it expanded my third eye, I was literally seeing a gnome, and whoever made yard gnomes was just being hyper realistic because that's how they fucking like to dress. I don't know. Suddenly it realizes I can see it. It looks at me in the same way like when you're at a restaurant and you see like a celebrity and they catch you looking at them and they're just sort of annoyed, like, ugh, another fucking high asshole at the spa watching me watch the fucking sunset. I've been rejected so many times. I've eaten hot bowls of shit on stage, but to like be rejected by a fucking gnome, that hurts. And I'm trying to deal with the fact that I'm seeing a gnome. If you do see Bigfoot, you're fucked. Because for the rest of your life, you're someone who saw Bigfoot. Which means that when you run into somebody, if they bring up Bigfoot, you either have to be a coward or like tell them what happened, which means for the rest of your life, they're gonna think you're absolutely insane. Because if you run into people who've encountered Bigfoot, a piece of you is like, okay, man, okay. Oh yeah, no, I'm sure there's a completely undiscovered primate in the Pacific Northwest. Similarly, when you see a gnome, you're realizing like for the rest of your life, you're gonna have to like be the asshole at the parties. Like, gnomes are real, man. And you can see them when you're on mushrooms. The penis envy, what, you heard of them? So my brain is like working through all of this.
Wow.
When I feel something like jump into my body and I realize that there's some kind of entities swimming through me. Meanwhile, by the way, my date, she's next to a tree having the best trip of all time. She's laughing. I can hear her saying, it's so beautiful. The world is just so beautiful. I'm like, no! I'm getting fucking attacked by a swarm of spirits. But I start praying in my head, please God protect me. And then suddenly there's a sense of like a maternal energy just like shoos them away and like embraces me. When I opened my eyes again, I'd started coming down. And that is pretty much the last time I took a substantial dose of mushrooms. Listen, kids, here's the moral of the story. If you're gonna take them with somebody, ask the person, what would you do if I shit my pants? Don't even ask, just shit your pants in front of them. And if they act weird, don't take mushrooms with them. Okay, cool. That's it. Great.
Tales from the Pit.
I'm having these like kids from like 12 years old to teenagers coming up to me and wanting pictures with me, and I'm tripping balls.
I like this guy.
Hi, I'm Brandon Rogers, and I'd like to talk about the first time I did mushrooms. I think most people have not done mushrooms, so I think the protagonist at the beginning of the story, myself who hasn't done them, is quite a relatable character already. And if you have done mushrooms, well, he's relatable still, so let's proceed. I was 28, and I was very depressed one day. One of my actor friends gave me a bag of mushrooms. Old woman. You never expect old people to have a bag of mushrooms. I have a friend of mine, we'll call him Logan, because that's his name. He was a shaman for me in this experience. Any drug, you name it, he's put it in his body, snorted it, or put it in his ass. So he said, all right, well, first of all, you gotta do it in a place you feel safe. I live in Los Angeles, and for most people, including myself, it's a shit place. It's basically a forest of concrete and assholes. I told him, I feel safe at my parents' house. And conveniently, they were out of town. So we drove 6 hours to Livermore, where I'm from. I used the house key, let myself in, and next thing you know, we're mashing mushrooms and making tea. We decided to go for a walk. Everyone's front lawns were the exact shade of Mountain Dew, and the sky was like someone colored it in with a goddamn highlighter. I felt like my soul. I felt like my true me, and I think all of us question whether we're good or bad people. Everyone teeters on this. We all know there's no such thing. We're comparing ourselves to things that don't exist. Everything that made me me, everything that I've learned since the day of birth was cracked to the core like dropping a goddamn jawbreaker. And in the middle of it was the soul I was born into this planet as. Just me, uninfluenced by anything. Wow. And I just looked into the sky and realized humor is what I was here to do. And where I grew up, there's a river, a creek bed, where homeless people live. And so we went to the grocery store, and I'm not fucking paying for shit. Not that I was too high to, I was just too high to care to. Money is a construct. I shouldn't have to give these papers to that stranger so that that person who's hungry can have something to eat. We took all this food and we gave it to these homeless people. We went down there and we just gave it to them. It's a victimless crime, you know, especially when you're on mushrooms. After that, we went to a trampoline park, and when I was there, I forget kids in high school go to these places, and I forget that that's my audience. And so I'm having these like kids from like 12 years old to teenagers coming up to me and wanting pictures with me, and I'm tripping balls. And I knew that if their parents knew that I was taking pictures with their kids tripping on mushrooms, they wouldn't be happy about that. And that's sort of where the high started to come down. I think that mushrooms, they're a wonderful thing that should be celebrated and conserved. You don't want to just plow through it like a college girl. You want to marry it. Weed is the college girl, you know. And if you marry your college girl, great. But my wife is gonna be mushrooms, and I only want to celebrate her or see her once in a blue moon.
Tales from the...
Okay, dude, that's all of you, bro. What do you think we're getting next? Let's find out. What?
Inhale. Exhale. Everything starts to whirl like a Fibonacci sequence of... Hi, my name is Ramin Nager, and this is the time I smoked DMT, saw every single timeline in the multiverse, and forgot which one I came from. Back when I lived in Austin, Texas, my friend Shane Moss from episode whatever of this show, he's the most popular episode of this show, he had just discovered DMT, and he was very eager to share it with me. And I'd tried psilocybin before, so I knew what psychedelics were about, but I heard that DMT was on a whole other level. Terrence McKenna once said that
DMT is like something that fell from a flying saucer, where you're sure you're dead.
Shane has the little bag of the psychedelic stuff, walking around like my own private Willy Wonka going, boy, am I excited for you. We sit down in my living room, and I am instructed to take 3 full hits, no matter how difficult it is to hold it in. The first hit, I take in, immediately my heart starts to beat like a drum in a funkadelic concert, just Shane says, okay, take one more. And I take the second hit of the metallic tasting purpley alien substance. Immediately I start to see this glowing code all over my hands, and I look very ancient. Not frail like I'm about to die, but I look like I'm some millennia old god with code all over me. I was clearly that thing that came to experience a human, not vice versa, hallucinating being the ancient god thing. So like, oh, this is my true hands, my code hands. He says, take one more. You gotta do it. I believe in you. Hands it over. It's shaking. The whole thing is clearly about to take off. I feel like it was going to take off regardless of whether I hit it or not, but just going in, he holds the thing up. Inhale. Exhale. Break through. Everything starts to whirl like a Fibonacci sequence of... The I amness is all I've ever been, and I had a clear feeling of that. Of course I'm an I am. Of course I can't be anything than an I am. I amness is I am, if that makes any sense. I could see more my past lives, my future lives, basically every combination of everything that could ever be was accessible in that database, in the larger consciousness system that I was seeing behind the veil of. And there were some entities, they were more chameleon-like than anything, kind of walking around like... One of them noticed me, and in a playful way just kind of extended its tongue and licked my eyeball, and didn't hurt at all or anything, but was kind of show like, yeah, see, I can mess with you, but nothing will hurt you at the deepest level. But then came the problem. As I climbed up, for lack of a better word, film strip of every possible multiverse timeline available, and as I'm looking at all of it, it hits me, I don't know which one I came from. I don't know what am I? Why am I looking at all this thing? Right then, I hear this voice from nowhere in particular go, "Stop the presses!" All the flowingness of everythingness came to a halt. So the ominous voice was kind of like, yeah, we can send you back whenever you want. All of this will still always be here. Just tell us where you want to get sent back to, and we'll send you back, and you'll get to go home. So there I was, the information boundary transfer point between the infinitely big and the infinitely small, trying to figure out how to get home. And then the voice asked, all right, so you're Ramin, you're in Austin, Texas, you did the DMT with Shane, that's how you got here, great. Did you do it in the living room, or did you do it in the recording studio? We did it in the studio. Send me back.
All right.
I open my eyes. We're sitting back in the studio. Wait a minute. Some more memories start to come back. I was sure that we had started in the living room. Beyond any measure of a doubt, but there's no way of proving that to anyone here because you guys are from the timeline where I did it in the studio. So I jump back to one click wrong. And I look over to Shane, and he's got a big smile on his face. He knew. He's in on it. But I didn't experience any paranoia. It was quite the opposite. It was pronoia. The feeling that everybody is conspiring to do something good for you. Like there's just one big surprise party at the end of your life. No one is ever gonna let up to it, but I really wanted to record this so I can get it on record that I know that the surprise party is coming. Did you get all that? Because I have no idea what I just said.
Tales from the...
Oh, wow. Alright, what's going next? Alright.
Try and imagine the best thing you have ever tasted, and then imagine that it is dangerous. And that is pineapple on acid. Hi, I'm Duncan Booster, and this is a story of the time I tripped acid and experienced the flavor of danger. Fire Island, if you're not in the know, is sort of an iconic gay vacation destination. It's a very teeny tiny island connected to New York, completely without cars and completely full of gay men in various states of undress. And every year, me and my friends try and stuff as many poor gay men into one giant house as possible. My friend busts out his LSD.
Okay, hang on a second. Where'd you go for a second? Okay. Okay, and we're back.
It was like Ren and Stimpy. I could see every like hair follicle, every pore. It was harrowing. Hi, my name's Akilah Hughes, and this is the story of when I dropped acid and watched Freaks and Geeks. The Postal Service's album, Give Up, which had been out for 10 years, was touring, and so we decided to go. We went, it was dead. Pitchfork gave it a perfect score. Like, everyone likes this album, but for some reason, no one was at the concert. But we wanted the night to keep going. Like, we wanted to have a good time. And so my friend, Tim, was like,
"You guys want to do some acid?"
And I was like, all right. So we went back to Williamsburg to his apartment, and we dropped acid. I was on the roof of the building, and I just started like ugly crying. Like, it was like Kim Kardashian, just like her diamond earrings had fallen in the ocean. Like, some other people who lived in the building got upstairs. They were a little freaked out. They're like, "What's going on with your friend?" And I'm like, "Cool, let's just get back in the elevator." You know, we decide that we're gonna watch Freaks and Geeks. So I was like, I don't know how you're gonna find it. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I was in the bathroom for an hour. I stared at the toilet paper, thinking like if I was going to start unrolling it, it might unroll forever. Like, I didn't think that I had the ability, like the strength in my body to stop it. So I just sat there like dripping in the toilet waiting to find the courage. I eventually went. After I was done washing my hands, which I assumed took like 25 minutes, I looked in the mirror. And I swear to you, I looked 200 years old. It was like Ren and Stimpy, like where they did those crazy hyper-realistic drawings. It was like I could see every like hair follicle, like the one weird chin hair, like every pore. It was harrowing. Like, it was bad. I looked haggard, so I started crying again. So I cried looking in the mirror. I like touched the mirror like it was in jail. Like, I was just like holding my hand there. Like, oh no, you're so old, you're gonna die. So I went and sat on the couch. And so my friend was like, I've got a bunch of oranges. And I heard that oranges taste amazing when you're tripping. And I'm like, what is it about them? He was preparing the oranges, like slicing them and like making them good for us. So we were like, why don't we draw what we're feeling? And so I just started drawing circles. And then it started to get like really intense, like a kid in a horror movie. Like, you know, those unhinged kids who are for some reason always drawing a circle. So I look at my boyfriend and I'm like, you're not even high. Like, you guys are all pretending. And he picked up what he was drawing. And it was the ugliest drawing of a cow. It looked like a little kid who had never seen a cow. But I knew it was a cow because he wrote the word moo next to the drawing. Around this point, my friend Tim brought over the citrus. I was immediately transported to like a 90s Fruit Gushers commercial where the heads turn into the fruit when they bite into the candy. So I'm eating like 6 oranges. Like, for some reason I'm going ham and cheese on these oranges. I can't get enough oranges. I don't know why I decided to do this, but I was like, I am allergic to oranges. I'm not allergic to oranges. For anyone watching this, like, that's a lie. But I wanted the drama of like everyone caring in that moment, and no one cared. They're like, "Well, you have like 6 and you're fine." I could die at any moment. They're like, "I don't know how to be there for you right now." And my boyfriend was like, "I think we should probably go back to my apartment. Like, we got to get out of here." We went back to his apartment, and then eventually, like, I would say maybe 2 hours later, after just laying in bed and staring at the ceiling and like not talking to each other, we had sex. And then we went to sleep. Of course.
Tales from the
Frickin' swamp, shirts off, the plant, pants are off, Scooby-Doo, boxers come off, my wing danglers all wing jangling with each other. Hi, my name is Cody Reese, and this is the time that I shit farted myself on acid. So I'm in Brazil, right? I'm in a bar, and it's freaking bumping, but it's completely empty except for me and this one lady. She's got a little tattoo on her arm. It's a 69. I was like, okay. I feel you, like, what's going on, dude? So I'm like talking, and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, dude, this is about to be Kissy Town, USA. And we're chatting it up, right? And she's like, hey, you seem pretty groovy, do you want to eat some acid with me? And then she mentions that she's married, and I'm like, oh, well, if you're married, you're probably not gonna be giving little kisses to each other and stuff. So I was like, well, do you want to take that acid? So she reaches in her pocket, pulls out the papers, and frickin' bon appetit, dude. We slam those right into our gouches and fucking chomp down on them. And we're walking around, and whenever I'm in nature on psychedelics, I really want to interact with the plants a lot. Their arms and their little arms are just extending, and I find myself just like kind of shaking little hands, you know, like, looking beautiful today, my friend. It's so good to see you. So anyways, we're walking around talking to, you know, giving a little heads up to plants, and eventually we make it down to the ocean. It's like, huzzah! Fucking water shore is awesome. Put our little toesies in, and oh my God, it's like a big old butter bath, my dude. Maybe we should freaking skimp off our little grizzlies and get in there. So we do. Freaking swamp, shirts off, clamp, pants are off, scoopity-doo. Boxers come off, my wing danglers all wing jangling with each other. And we go, there's like little tiny waves, and we're like body surfing a little bit. And I don't know if anyone out there has ever body surfed when you're naked, but it's like having a big giant like massage rug like fitting to your body as you like freaking like roll around, like, and eventually we're like laying there on our backs looking up at the stars, and it's this feeling of just like serenity, you know? You look up like serenity in the dictionary, and right next to on drugs in the dictionary, and it's like bop, 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 and there's like so many stars that it's like they kind of like combine into like swooshes of like white blinkiness in the sky. And I'm laying on her chest, and every breath she takes, the world seems to like breathe with her, like. When the sun starts to rise, and it's like a fucking masterclass on sick colors, dude. Like, purple's there, it's like, what's up, dude, I'm here. And then orange is like, hey, dude, you forgot about me, didn't you? And I'm like, I totally did, dude, it's great to see you again. And anyway, somehow in freaking God's name, we fall asleep there, and we open our eyeballs, and this guy's like really slowly jogging, and he goes,
someone stole your bag.
And we look down, her bag had been stolen. So we decide to make our way to the police station. And we get to the police station, and they got freaking beards on, and they got tank tops, and they got their freaking spaghetti straps, what are those called? The fucking business tutors that everybody wears back in the day, like, hey, suspenders. And the police chief is there. He's a very small guy, very big hat. He got really big eyebrows, no teeth. His nose turned a little to the side. I'm looking at him in the face, like, I gotta give you a scramble. Obviously, we're on drugs, so we're feeling a little shifty in our boots. He turns to me and he's like, so are you the husband? And I'm like, oh yeah, this lady's married. What have we been doing? We spent we just frolicked around naked for hours, and at that point I'm like, okay, well I probably should not be here, and I decided to see myself out. And I'm starting to feel relaxed and at ease, and in this moment of complete lack of tension, my butt cheeks unclench and shit my pants. Yeah. And there I am, tripping on acid outside of a police station on an island in Brazil, chunking my shorts with monkey chowder. What's up? Did we kiss? Well, I'll never tell.
Gross, bro.
Tales from the...
Yeah, that makes me feel weird, bro. Alright, we'll do one more. One more. This will be the last one. Ooh, a shroom-fueled hike.
I don't want to die, so no thank you. I could feel the presence of that being becoming upset, and Ron asked if I was okay. Hey everybody, I'm Rory Scoble.
And I'm Ron Funches, and this is the story of the mushroom hike that changed both our lives. At the time, I wasn't very well versed in taking mushrooms, nor doing hikes at all. I believe I came dressed for this hike wearing full dress shoes and slacks because I only owned 2 outfits at this time.
We hiked into the Muir Woods up in San Francisco. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and our friends. And my wife looks at me and she says,
you're eating quite a bit of mushrooms.
And I arrogantly look at her and I was just like, buy the ticket, take the ride. And there's no chance anyone in the group thought that was cool at all.
No, we did not. We did not think it was cool. We thought it was a weird thing to say.
I think that would be cool.
We start hiking up the trail even further, and my mushrooms start kicking in within 5 minutes, and I'm like, hey, I think I need to hang back. And the rest of the group is like, oh, great, we're heading up the trail. And Ron was willing to stay back, not for my safety. We sit down, I close my eyes, and immediately every cell in my body just accelerated out into the universe, out into the beyond. It was the most real feeling. When I got out there, I remember this very real presence of this being telling me that now I was going to get to know all of the secrets. The only time you get to know all the secrets is when you're about to die, and I don't want to die, so no thank you. I don't want to know the secrets. I could feel the presence of that being becoming upset, and I opened my eyes, and Ron asked if I was okay.
For me at that time, I was again just on a moderate amount of mushrooms, so I was laying down, happy to get off my feet, and I just closed my eyes and seeing little fun traces and having a solid time. But then I opened my eyes and I look over at him, and he is very pale, like a Casper or Powder, if you're familiar with that movie. Not only did you think you were dead, you thought that you might have actively been in hell. And I didn't believe that to be true at the time, and if it was true, then that was very bad news for me as well, because
At one point, I asked Ron Funches to punch me, knock me out, then I can skip all this anguish and just wake up sober.
Well, I knew it was a bad idea for me to punch a random white man in the face and then call the authorities on myself.
While Ron is kind of dealing with, his own internal struggles, I'm dealing with mine, which is the concept of death and how it's been a part of my life and my psyche for so long, losing a parent at such a young age. It's kind of something that's just been sitting on me my whole life, and for whatever reason, this is the trip that the mushrooms decided, we got to unclog these pipes that are dealing with it. So Ron and I start to walk down the trail back to the parking lot, which is the smartest decision that we made the entire day. And while we walked, passing many Japanese tourists, hearing the Japanese language, which is a beautiful language, on mushrooms, there were moments I thought they were talking about me loudly, probably 2 times. I asked Ron if they were fucking with me.
I had to confirm to you that Japanese is indeed a real language that people speak, and it was not a prank made to mess with.
Okay. Hang on, yo. Alright. I'm gonna continue this until we see a change. Actually, this is not the last one, but I need to grab something, so I will be right back. There. You can have the fridge cam for a bit. Okay, everybody, I am back. Welcome back from the break. I got me some cheese sticks. Let's continue.
You many years ago, and it helped me come up with one of my favorite jokes of all time, which was I did a joke about how people ask me what it's like to raise a child that has autism, and I said it's a lot like hanging out with a friend that's just done way too many shrooms when you yourself are on a moderate amount of shrooms.
So Ron and I get to the end of the trail, and now we're back in the parking lot. We go into the bathroom. For some reason, I thought, if I just take a shit, that'll fix everything. And so on mushrooms, starting to look at the hatred and the over-sexualized phrases that are just all over, I start having another panic.
Yeah, I called my friend Duncan John, which is a good name to call when you're having a difficult drug experience.
So while Ron's on the phone, swear to God, just 12 wild turkeys just walked past me, and I looked up at Ron, like, are these real? Are these turkeys actually here?
And at this time, I'm just over it, so I'm still on the phone just going, yeah, man, these turkeys are clearly real. You see them, I see them. Get over it. We've all seen turkeys.
It was shortly after that we see our friends.
They come skipping down that hill, just skipping and loving each other, high-fiving.
Yeah.
Talking about all the experiences they went through, that they found a beautiful meadow with rainbows and
owls.
Deer that just ate out of their hands. It was a good lesson about pushing forward and pushing through, but also sometimes you just gotta turn back and hang out with some turkeys in the parking lot. The one thing I did like that I learned about him is how much he cared for his girlfriend at that time.
Not long after that, I proposed to my wife. Ron's guidance and support through all that kind of led me to this conclusion of the level of commitment I was ready to make. And
truly, the amount of love and concern you had for Jordan at that time really kind of showed me that I didn't necessarily feel the same for my wife. And then I got divorced.
Yeah, and you realized you could, on your own, take care of a child who was approaching 30.
Tales from the...
Oh, Pete Holmes? I think I know who that is.
I'm worried about this girl who's seeing me like... The cushions slowly enveloping my face. Like I was the couch. I had no body.
What the heck, bro?
Hi, this is Pete Holmes, and this is the time I learned the secret mantra that can make a bad trip incredibly good. I have a lot of rules when it comes to taking mushrooms. You should definitely be with people you are comfortable crying in front of or throwing up in front of. Not that you're gonna cry or throw up, but that's the vibe. And the other one is I like to fast beforehand because I want it to kick in quickly, and I want to be running clean. Like it's all about plant medicine, so I eat a lot of plants and get all green inside. Eat the mushrooms go in and they're like, I know you guys, let's just give this guy a big party. And everybody goes nuts. On this trip, I broke both of my rules. We drove up, me, my friend Nick Thune, who's a comedian, and his friend, who was a lady, who I had a crush on. I want to impress this girl. I have drugs, I party. I know I look like a narc. Like leaning on a van that says DEA on it, like, you guys want to get faded? Like, I'm not really a drug person. I'm usually the person who can't even tell when other people are on drugs. I'm always like, who was that sweaty, confident man? He had a go-get-him attitude. It's like he was on cocaine. But I wanted to be cool. We had this free day. Let's drive up to Big Bear. Rule number 1, eat clean, eat leaves, eat plants. She wanted to stop at In-N-Out Burger. So I went from eating no cows to eating little bits of ground up 1,000 cows. All the blood and the factory farming and the stress and the fear is just saturating and weighing in my belly. Let's not disrespect psilocybin and call it a drug. It's a medicine. The drug I took was In-N-Out Burger. Then we drove up to Big Bear. It was a cabin where I had tripped before. I chopped up the mushrooms and I served it to the 3 of us, 3 equal portions. Now we're waiting for it to kick in. So I pick up a guitar, just serenading both of them, just like secretly looking on the side of my eye to see if the girl is impressed. And then I look at my left hand and it has 11 fingers, like on this hand. So I hated it. Immediately, I knew. I'd never had a bad trip before, but I just knew I'm about to have a bad trip. And then the walls start to bleed, which everybody says, but I had never seen that. So I start freaking out, and I say to Nick, I need food. If I eat some food, maybe it will help cool me out a little bit. But I'm like, we can't go, we're all tripping. And Nick Thune is like, I can drive, okay? Because he wasn't tripping yet, and he drives away. So now I'm anxious for him, and I'm worried about this girl who's seeing me like becoming the couch. Like the cushions slowly enveloping my face. Like I was the couch. I had no body. I realized I had some Xanax, and a friend of mine had told me that Xanax would help with bad trips. And I poured them in my hand, and my hand was the size of a football field. My hand was a prairie, and each pill was an Irish sheep, and they were moving around, and I couldn't tell which was which. I knew one was Ambien, I knew one was Xanax, I knew one was Cialis. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be erect, asleep, or calm right now, but I can't risk it. So I just put them back in the bottle. I couldn't figure out which one was which. So I got up. Nick Thune returns. He is tripping. So he drove to the store in a car. He returned in a spaceship, and he gave me a banana. I was so in love with Nick Thune that he did this for me. And then the trip is still bad. It's not cooperating. I thought it wasn't cooperating with me. It turned out I wasn't cooperating with it. No bleeding walls, no becoming the couch, because I'm trying to impress this girl. So I had my own agenda, and the mushroom kept going like, no, we're gonna do this. So I was fucking it up. It was my fucking fault. I was looking at Nick Thune. He looked like Christian Bale in The Machinist, and the girl turned purple, and she looked like a zombie, and she started having a bad trip, I think because she saw me having a bad trip. But then I realized, just say fucking yes. In life and in trips, it's what's happening. It's what's happening. Like this plant was inviting me to something, and I kept going, no, 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 no. It was my no that was making it a bad trip. I was like, okay, what do you want to do? I want a dragon to growl in your face. And I was like, you know what? I spend most of my life not having a dragon growling in my face, so why not? Let's try it. And it was still trying to scare me. This was a real aha moment. I said to it, I go, what are you gonna get me? And I stood up and I go, guys, I am in a prison of my own making. We are walking corpses. Own it. Sorry if it's being impolite. We all die. Enjoy it. And I'm like, we gotta get outside. And open the sliding door. We're on like a body of water. I guess it was a lake. We take our clothes off. We jump in the lake. Instantly just happy. We hear music, but it's not in our heads. It's real music. And we swim towards the music. And we get to the shore, and it's a fucking outdoor festival. Literally. We didn't know what was happening. There was an outdoor, like, country music festival, and all these people that we would never talk to, and we're like, we are you. You are us. But we didn't say that. What we did say was, we came from the sea. We hung out for songs. We started to come down. We swam back and danced on the lawn like gnomes. And the difference between a bad trip and a good trip is the word yes.
Tales from the
Where are we going now? Yeah, we're just gonna stay on this channel. I mean, I'm really
I spent the
curious
next
to see what
386 miles teaching myself how to fly a fucking spacecraft. I'm Rosebud Baker, and this is the story of how I drove my family 386 miles on mushrooms. In high school, I put in a lot of time, a lot of effort into becoming the absolute best pothead that I could be. Was I into glass-blown arts? Yes. Did I consider glass blowing as a major in college? Yeah, I did. Was I into the band Fish? Yeah, I was. And that's an embarrassing fact. It's easier to admit that I'm a drug addict today than it is to admit that I was ever into the band Fish. I can't identify with that group of white gypsies. I mean, I would walk around these massive fields where white people with dreadlocks would be offering me battery acid to smoke. And I'm like, that's not a thing. And they were like, we could try it. Honestly, they might have created their own STD at this point. At one point, you know, you just get high over and over again until you're like, this isn't even doing anything anymore. That's how I got into mushrooms. It was really just to find out how much higher I could get. I thought it was a good idea to take my father to New Jersey to see Fish because he and my mother had like met at a Grateful Dead concert. I took my dad and my sister up to New Jersey for this Fish show. My dad was so in his element. We walked in and he just wandered off and left my sister and I to just kind of do whatever. And I was going through my purse, like trying to get something to eat. And I found this bag of mushrooms and I just bought this pizza, mushrooms. I love a mushroom pizza. I ate the entire eighth. I didn't tell my sister and I definitely didn't tell my dad because he was like nowhere to be found. And the show starts, the lights are incredible. Everybody looks like a deck chair blowing in the wind. I'm having a good time. I start to feel it a little bit. I start to feel like warm in my stomach and like, you know, you get that like kind of fuzzy feeling in your cheeks. The things that amused you as a toddler start to amuse you again. An eighth, I'd never taken that much, by the way. I was like, if I pass out on my face, the man who's responsible for keeping me alive is here, somewhere. I mean, he left, but he's around. In the middle of this, like as I started tripping, I remember Fish was selling these t-shirts with a totem pole that went all the way up to the neck, so that your head was like the top of the totem pole. My dad walked up with 2 of them and his head was on the top of this totem pole. I was like, what is happening? I screamed. I was like, the totem pole is talking to me. And my dad's mustache took on a life of its own. It was like moving. I couldn't stop watching his mustache move. My sister, honestly, she could have vaporized. I wouldn't have even noticed. As the show ends, I'm sure Fish played all of like 3 songs in 4 hours. We start walking to the parking lot. I look at my dad and he's like swaying like back and forth. And I was like, oh, I'm fucked up. And then I realized, no, he's fucked up. We have to drive. And my dad turns to me, he does that like drunk turn where he's like, you know what I mean, where the knees go first.
You wanna drive?
And I got a little paranoid because I was like, if I say no, he's gonna know that I'm tripping balls right now. And my sister was too young to drive, so I was the only option. Anybody watching this from the outside would be like, there is no option, you're staying in Jersey. I said, yeah, I got in the car, my dad got in the car. My dad was passed out, my sister was passed out. I spent the next 386 miles teaching myself how to fly a fucking spacecraft. It was honestly the most gorgeous drive of my life. It's the most scenic I've ever experienced. And I was like, sound isn't real, space isn't real, time isn't real. And I flipped the fuck out. I was scared the whole way. I do not recommend ever doing this. It's not safe. I was conscious in a way that I've never been before in my life. I remember there was a pickup truck in front of us and there was a dresser on it. The bottom drawer of the dresser had slid out, so it looked like the dresser had an underbite, and it was like,
you're a bad person. You're putting your family in danger. You're never gonna breed.
I was having all kinds of realizations, like how irresponsible I was, but also like, you know, what an interesting person. I can't, the fabric of reality was literally ripping apart in front of me. I don't know how, but we did arrive safely home. I truly believe in God because he got me from the Meadowlands to Northern Virginia with my family in the car. No one in my family knows that this happened. So if they're watching right now, I'm really sorry. But I did get you home safe. So I maybe deserve some credit for that.
Tales from the...
Let me see here. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's really gonna get to anything else in the recommended, so why don't we just go back to YouTube see what's changed. Oh, see, yeah, it did change a whole bunch of stuff in here, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What, like 6 videos that have to do with some sort of drug thing, you know? Oh, we got a Solar Sands video here. Ah, interesting. I didn't expect to see any of that, even though, yeah, his content's pretty cool. Joe Rogan and DMT, yeah. COVID-19 things. Alright, interesting. Yeah, so it definitely did change a good amount here. Because now we've also got, unless this is just the normal categories, you got podcasts, comedies, extraterrestrial life. I feel like that's not a normal category. I think these changed. Consciousness, science fiction, Kevin Hart, for some reason. That's where I think it kind of goes into the more normal recommended stuff rather than what it changed. Let me see if I do this. Okay, it didn't change anything. Yeah, so what if I close out of it completely? Open a new one. Just to see if it really did change anything. Go to YouTube. Yeah, so it definitely did change and influence the categories that show up as well. That's interesting. Alright. Well, I do believe that's gonna be it, everybody, because it is getting late. Thank you, anyone who watches this, for joining me on this journey through the YouTube algorithm. And yeah, thanks everybody for 154 subscribers as of now. And yeah, if you're new, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 200, and I'll see y'all in the next one.